Today's episode is brought to you by the Daily Gardener Friday newsletter. You can sign up for the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org. Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, a podcast featuring garden history and literature. I'm Jennifer Ebling, and today is February 15th. Today in garden history, we celebrate the birth of Galileo, who was born on this day in 1564. Galileo was an Italian astronomer, physicist, engineer, mathematician, and philosopher, and he believed that the book of nature was, quote, written in the language of mathematics. That would make my husband happy. Now, Galileo recognized the complexity and the simplicity of that language when he wrote, "The sun, with all those planets revolving around it and dependent on it, can still ripen a bunch of grapes as if it had nothing else in the universe to do." And today is the birthday of the German botanist and poet Karl Friedrich Schimper, who was born on this day, February 15th, in 1803. Karl was born into a family of scientists. His mother was a botanist, and at university, he befriended other botanists like Alexander Braun and Louis Agassiz, impressive friends. But Karl himself was a success as well, and he made several keen scientific observations. First, he proved the association between the golden angle and the Fibonacci numbers. He also devised a theory of phyllotaxy, which explained the serial addition of new leaves on a stem, appearing in a spiral. And after studying mountain landscapes, he began questioning how enormous rocks came to be positioned on the foothills of the Alps. And he realized that the many-ton slabs of rock could only have been moved by ice. And he began devising his theory of an ice age, something he called an ice zeit. Karl was a poet at heart, and so he revealed his theory in a lighthearted 22-stanza poem. And he made this ode to honor Galileo because he knew that they shared a birthday. And so he wanted to honor Galileo on this day, and he did that with this poem about the Ice Age. And there's one verse in particular that I wanted to share with you. It goes like this: "Ice of the past, of an age when frost in its stern clasp held the lands of the south, dressed with its mantle of desolate white, mountains and forests, fair valleys and lakes." Well, in modern times, the author Christopher Seddon acknowledged Karl's discovery in his book called Humans from the Beginning. He wrote, 2,588 million years ago, the Earth entered an ice age. Cooler, arid conditions alternated with warmer, wet conditions as ice sheets ebbed and flowed in higher altitudes. This alternation between a cooler and a warmer climate has continued right up to the present day. In fact, the warm spells, interglacial periods, are no more than breaks in an ongoing ice age. The term ice zeit, or ice age, was coined in 1837 by the German botanist Karl Friedrich Schimper. And today is the birthday of one of the greatest botanists the world has ever known, Ernest Henry Wilson, who was born on this day in 1876. He was an English plant collector and explorer, and he introduced over 2,000 plant species from Asia to the West. And of the regal lily, one of the most amazing plants he found, he wrote, "It's God's present to our gardens. Anybody might have found it, but his whisper came to me." On his first trip to China, Ernest located the lost dove tree, also known as the handkerchief tree. And in 1899, he brought the tree to England. Ernest found the yellow Chinese poppy, the regal lily, rhododendrons, roses, and primulas, all on his second trip to China. But during that second trip, Ernest's leg was crushed in a landslide as they were walking up a mountain. And so they used whatever they had available. In this case, it was Ernest's camera tripod, and that's what they splinted his leg with. And they were about to go back down the mountain when a mule caravan came upon Ernest and his party. And there was nothing else for Ernest to do but to lie down on the narrow trail and let some 40 to 50 mules step over him on their way across the mountain. Now, Ernest himself marveled at this experience, and he later said, "The sure-footedness of the mule is well known, and I realized it with gratitude as these animals, one by one, passed over me, and not even one frayed my clothing." A year later, Ernest could walk without crutches, but not without a limp, something he called his lily limp. And he once reflected, "The regal lily was worth it and more." It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Sanctified Landscape by David Schuyler. This book came out 10 years ago in 2012, and the subtitle is Writers, Artists, and the Hudson River Valley, 1820 to 1909. David's book, The Sanctified Landscape, is about the first iconic American landscape, the Hudson River Valley. And the title references a passage that was written by landscape painter Thomas Cole. In the early 1800s, the picturesque Hudson was home to writers and artists like Washington Irving, James Fenimore Cooper, and Thomas Cole. And as far as the artistic community was concerned, there was no better place on earth. But the landscape there was not immune to the changes that were happening in the country at large. And so the artist community in the Hudson Valley were among America's earliest conservationists, and they did their best to protect their little slice of Eden. The Catskill and the Hudson Valley remain a beloved area of the country, and David's book adds context and images, amazing images that provide a deeper appreciation for the beauty and inspiration found in this sanctified landscape. You can get a copy of Sanctified Landscape by David Schuyler and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $15. Finally, here's a little botanic spark featuring Russell Herman Conwell, the American Baptist minister, lawyer, and founder of Temple University in Philadelphia. He was born on this day in 1843, and he once wrote, "I ask not for a larger garden, but for finer seeds." Well, that's it for today's show. Just a reminder that you have a standing invitation to join the Facebook group for listeners of the show. The next time you're over at Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community, where you'd search for a friend and request to join. And if you'd like more of the Daily Gardener, you can subscribe to the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org, where you can also show your support for the show by donating to the Daily Gardener. This is Jennifer Ebling. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.